Hey, my friends, David Burns out in the bee yard the first week of fall. How are you doing today? I'm pumped and excited, but I've got maybe some bad news today. We're going to talk about some things are too late. It's too late. I've been getting so many emails this week. I am flooded with emails of people asking, is it too late for me to do specifically two things? It's not just one person, it's not just 5 people, it's got to be well over 20 to 50 people asking the same question. So I thought I'd make a video. One of the things people are asking me today is it too late to add a super? A lot of people feel like their bees are overcrowded. Now this is a horizontal Langstroth. You don't add supers, but on the traditional Langstroth hive, like this one, some beekeepers, especially new beekeepers, are starting to worry that their hive is too crowded. And so they feel like that even though they may have a super on there, a medium super, they feel like if they can add another medium super on there in the fall, that it will prevent maybe swarming or give the bees more room and so on. But let me tell you, let me answer that question. It's too late. It's too late to add any honey supers in the fall. We're the first week of fall here in Illinois. So no matter where you live, if you're in your first week of fall, whether you're in Australia, California, New York, or Alabama, wherever, if you're in your first week or into fall, yeah, that's too late to be trying to get frames drawn out. Bees need a lot of incoming nectar to get frames drawn out. And if they don't have it, it's going to be hard. So always try to get your frames, whether it's your super frames or your brood box frames, always try to get those drawn out in spring or early summer. After that, it's just too late. It really is too late. Can it happen? Is it possible? Yes, but it would be extremely rare. So don't bank on that. It's too late to add supers. Now, another thing I want to talk to you real quick about is that like a colony like this, you might be thinking they're going to get too crowded, they're going to swarm, maybe there'll be a nectar flow of goldenrod and they're crowded already, they can swarm. Yes, they can. So you need to look for swarm cells. And so you're going to have to look in the deep box for swarm cells to make sure they don't swarm. And inspecting a hive this time of the year is tough because right now this hive is more defensive. All hives are. They have more honey to protect, and most of the time they're mostly home during the day or when you're wanting to do your inspection. So that can be more bees to contend with. The second thing beekeepers are dealing with and asking me a lot of questions about. Now, before I tell you the second thing that is so important that it's probably too late to do anything, I want to encourage you guys on how to get your bees through the winter. This is going to be something I'm talking about during my live stream this coming Thursday on the live stream, 7 o'clock Central Time. Please join me. I'll leave a link at the end of this video in the description below so you can learn part one of getting your bees ready for winter, even though some things are probably too late. There are many things it's not too late for. A lot of beekeepers haven't done anything about their mites all year, and now they're starting to ask me questions about, is it too late to treat for mites? Well, of course not. It's not too late to treat for mites. You know, you can use things, if the temperatures are right, you can use things like Formic Pro to blast kill your mites. You can use Apigard, you can use Viroxan, all the new things and traditional ways, oxalic acid and such. But here's the deal. Oh, there's a drone. So they haven't killed all their drones yet. But the deal is, if you use something that takes a while, some of these things take 40 plus days, right? 2 generations of bees to really have a good treatment, like Viroxan, Apigard, things like that. Well, that's going to push you into cold weather. You may not be able to get back in there and remove stuff. You remove your treatment. So you got to think through ahead like that. So I'm kind of got some bad news that for some of you, it may be too late to treat for mites. If you're already going to be facing cold weather, you don't want to go through winter and leave your some treatments can't be left in there. They have to be taken out like after 56 days or something. And so you don't want to leave them in there, but sometimes you can't open your hive up, you know, when it's cold. You got to be 65 degrees or warmer Fahrenheit before you start pulling frames out. Now, another thing that you need to realize, here's something I really need to stress. All the bees that you see now, these are bees of summer physiology. These are summer bees, right? for the most part. Maybe 10% of them could be winter bees because we are in late September, but not many. Your winter bees of winter physiology will be probably emerging any day now in October and November. So you might think your bees are overcrowded because they look like it, but a lot of these bees are going to be dead in another month or two. Even before Christmas, a big percentage of the bees that you see right now will be dead. Now, you just have to be aware that they could swarm if they're overcrowded and there starts to be a pretty strong nectar flow in the fall. Bees swarm in the fall. I think I've had 2 swarms this fall, caught me off guard. But the thing is, treating for mites is what I want to talk about, because the treatment for mites, we're not just trying to kill the mites, we're trying to prevent viruses. So it's not really the mites that kill the bees. The mites aren't physically killing bees. It's that they're vectoring viruses. They injure bees when they bite them, but the mites are making our bees sick with viruses. All right, so follow my numbers, follow my math here. This is why it's too late to treat for mites in some cases. The first case is you've waited all year to look at mites. You've not been concerned. Maybe you just didn't know about mites until now. Maybe you didn't care until now. I don't know, whatever your deal is. It's fine. I love you for who you are. I'm not going to judge you. Happens to all of us. But let's say you didn't do anything about mites in your hive and now you want to do something. Is there still time? Yes and no. Yes, it's time to kill mites, but no, you may not be able to salvage the hive. Let me explain. It's the viruses. So even if, let's say this hive, I haven't done a mite count on this hive recently, so I don't know their numbers. But let's say their numbers are really high. So if I kill all the mites, I can't get rid of the viruses that fast either. If I put Formic Pro, the weather's good for Formic Pro. And let's say they had more than 3 mites, 100 bees, and I did a Formic Pro kill, and I came back 2 weeks later and tested again, and sure enough, they're down to 1 or 0 mites. I'm going to applaud myself, right? And say, okay, this hive's ready for winter. But is it? Let's say they had 30 or 50 mites per 100 bees before I treated, and then I knocked all the mites down, I got it down to 0, the hive's still in trouble. Well, you say, David, how can that be? How can you kill mites and your hive is still in trouble? It's because it's the viruses. So do the math with me. Let's say that we have 3 mites per 100 bees. That's the threshold that's kind of on the borderline of, yeah, it's probably okay, we don't need to treat this time of the year for a hobbyist, 2 to 3 mites in the fall. Let's say we have 3 mites. For the math, it's going to be easy. So how many mites total do we have if this colony has 40,000 bees in it? Well, 3 mites per 100 is the same as 30 mites per 1,000. That's how I do the math. And we're going to have 40,000, so we do the multiplication. That's 1,200 mites on 40,000 bees. 1,200 mites in there. Now, these mites are not just hanging out with one bee. They're biting a lot of bees at one time. They're still reproducing. There's the mama foundress mite still going in cells, laying more eggs, so they're still populating. But think about this. It's the viruses that we're concerned about. Every nurse bee that's infected with viruses can spread the virus by feeding young larvae. The drones that we just saw, they can be affected with the viruses, and when they go out and mate with another queen from another colony, they sexually transmit the viruses into that queen, who comes back to her hive somewhere, and she starts laying eggs, and when she lays, she's laying, and they're being fertilized with infected sperm from the viruses in the sperm. It's catastrophic. Oh, here's the worst part. Let's say the nurse bees have the viruses in their hypopharyngeal glands and their mandibular glands. They're feeding royal jelly through these glands, and the glands are infected with the virus. They're feeding the virus to the developing larvae. Your bees of winter physiology larvae are getting a dose of the virus. And if you know anything about viruses, viruses jump into a cell. They're like a copy machine. They copy themselves thousands of millions of times, and the virus just takes over. So if you wait until the end of the year to treat for mites, the viruses are they have taken such a hold on the hive. So that's why you want to keep your mite levels down all year long, because you're trying to keep the virus level load down all year long. So that's why you may have waited too late if you wait until treating them one time in the fall and you haven't done anything all year. It's the virus compounding that may not allow your bees to make it through winter. So it's too late to add supers, too late in fall to get your frames drawn out with wax, and it's probably too late if you're waiting until fall to treat for mites and you've done nothing all year because of the impact the viruses have had on your bees. Now, is there any good news in all of this? Yeah, there could be. The good news is that not all mites are what I call dirty mites. Like, I've pulled ticks off of me that had their head in me, and I didn't get Lyme disease. Not all ticks are transmitting these diseases that we worry about, right? Not all ticks, some, not all. But because you could get something serious from a tick, it's a good idea to wear something to prevent ticks. Same with mites. Not all mites are dirty mites. Not all mites have I guess the amount of viruses or the type of viruses that are going to really hurt your bees. I would say most of them do, but not all of them do. And so the only way to really tackle this is to consider reducing mites altogether all year long. And that way you don't take a chance with getting these dirty mites that are spreading these bad viruses that are knocking out our bees in the wintertime. Here's the other deal, folks. If you lose your bees because you didn't treat for mites, you're going to lose them in late winter or early spring. And the reason for that is because the bees of winter physiology live 4 to 8 months, but they only live half their life if they're infected with a virus spread by the mites. So instead of 4 to 8 months, they're only living 2 to 4 months. So let's say you're raising bees of winter physiology because you're feeding them my Burns feeder board and my additives, and they start raising a lot of bees now, and they emerge in October, 21 days or whatever. So you're going to get bees in October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, if you don't have high viral loads. But if they do have a high virus count, it's going to be October, November, December, January, maybe February. And the bees are going to die half their life. Your winter bees won't make it through winter because of viruses. So the only hope, if you've not been able to knock your mite levels down and you want to throw something like Formic Pro for a flash kill, then maybe the mites that you have, the high numbers, aren't heavily infected with viruses. Fingers crossed. But again, if your bees do die in the winter, it could very well be the virus loads from the mites. So don't blame a cold winter. I hear a lot of beekeepers saying, well, it's because it's so cold, my bees died. Look, we live in a house, right, as humans, and we go to the grocery store, we get food, and if we get sick, we go to the doctor, we get an antibiotic, we get over it, whatever. We're healthy, going into winter, good health, food, and a house. We don't die because it's cold. Humans don't die because it's cold unless you're stranded out in the cold without food and shelter. So our bees, if they have food and shelter, they will do fine as long as they're also healthy and don't have a lot of mites. It's not the cold. They can survive cold, but they can't survive cold without food, without shelter, and they can't survive winter if they're full of viruses. Treating for mites now in early fall will cut down on your viral loads because you're killing the additional mites that could keep spreading viruses. Yes, but remember, we still have viruses, like I've talked about, in the bees that are alive, that are feeding other bees. Bees feed each other mouth to mouth. We've got to remember we're dealing with bees and they're in close proximity. The spread of virus is just unfathomable. So that's why it's so important to keep our mite levels down. so badly. It's so important. Well, I am pumped and excited about this Thursday's live stream, part 1 on how to get your bees ready for winter. I hope you'll join me. I'll leave an image right here. You can click on it. You'll have to wait until Thursday if you're watching it before Thursday. Otherwise, you can click on it if you're late in coming and watch it. But it will help you get your bees through the winter. I'll see you guys over there.